Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Author Ignition. And this is the Ignite Press livecast and podcast where we feature amazing authors as they launch their books. Today, we've got a very special guy. Mark Kenny has joined us to talk about his book. I'm going to hold it up here, and the Hippo Solution, Eliminate Territorial Thinking and Unleash the Power of Teams. So Mark has been doing some pretty amazing things, and he decided he would put some of this stuff in this book to help people, and to particularly help people eliminate territorial thinking. And I'd like to bring on Mark now. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Everett. Thank you.
Pretty exciting day with the launch of your book.
It's very exciting. It's a whole lot of fun. I'd encourage everybody out there, if you have an idea of writing a book, do it.
Definitely. And, there's some crazy statistics out there that say, I don't know, I've heard it said 80% of people think they have a book in them. And that seems extreme, but we know there are a lot of people with books in them. But let's talk about you and your book. First, Mark, why don't you tell us a bit about who you are, and then we'll get into how the Hippo Solution came about.
Okay. Well, I am a Midwesterner, grew up in Wisconsin. I'm a cheesehead. Lifelong Green Bay Packers fan, but career-wise, I started off in IT and operations, and actually did that for a number of years. And after a little bit of career turbulence, started my own software company where we worked with a number of organizations, and over, probably actually a number of years there as well. And that kind of developed a passion for dealing with some of the dissonance out there in organizations, or the misalignment, if you could say, in organizations. But originally, I'm just a simple Midwestern guy that loves the Packers and basketball.
Well, I'm glad you said simple and not simpleton, right? I think there's a difference between those.
Yes, that's right.
And a Packers fan, terrific. That's great. So, Mark, when did you first have the inkling of writing this book, The Hippo Solution?
Actually, a number of years ago. So I was working in a number of organizations as a consultant or as an implementer, and dealing with some of the dysfunction, the lack of alignment, lack of clarity, that sort of thing. And that really started a passion for trying to figure that out. But I didn't know what that was, or how to solve that. So, but that's where the idea for starting a book came from, is to flesh that out. But it took a number of years to figure out what the focus of that would be and how to really help organizations. So it really wasn't until the last 2 years that I really started getting serious about that.
All right, so I would be remiss if I didn't let people know that today the book is available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. And in fact, the Kindle is placed at 99 cents today, so that you can pick that up if you like. So Kindle 99 cents, paperbacks there at retail, but definitely encourage you to pick this up. So now, and by the way, if you're watching live, feel free to place in comments, questions, cheer Mark on, whatever. I'll pass those along to Mark, and we'll work any questions into our conversation. So now, Mark, hippos. Why hippos? I remember the first time I met you, your branding was something to do with a hippo, and I'm like, well, what the heck is this? Okay, so can you explain this for us?
I can. Well, hippos happen to be some of the most territorial, hostile animals on the planet. Not to mention the fact that it was a fun little branding thing. Like, just I like to have a little bit of fun, and so I didn't want to be like Strategic Solutions Inc. or something like that. I want to have a little bit of fun, and hippos really represented what it is that I'm trying to help organizations solve out there, which is that territorial thinking. Hippos are very, very territorial, and so you have to be careful around them. You have to navigate around them, and so that was kind of the basis for the branding, because I see the same thing in organizations, not necessarily overt or intentional, but we all have this tendency to be focused on our own priorities or our own agendas. Or like a leader I talked to just last week who is kind of keeping their team under the radar a little bit while the politics settle down above them. There's all sorts of that sort of thing going on. And so we kind of all have a little bit of a hippo in all of us. But what that does is we expend our energy and effort in the wrong places. So instead of working together towards reaching the same destination as a cohesive team of teams, we're all focused on our own agendas, our own hippo-esque thinking, if we could put it that way.
You talk about hippos, and I remember hearing something that, we think of these hippos as these cute animals. We see them, floating in the water, and
In the
they seem
zoo.
so sedate and pastoral and idyllic and all of that stuff. And then you hear that, yeah, they're like one of the most dangerous creatures on the planet or something like that.
That's right. And if I told you how they mark their territory, you get a different picture of what hippos are actually like.
Well, I've been to the zoo, and I've seen I've seen some of that tail wagging going on, which is
Yeah. Okay. So you know a little bit of what I'm talking about.
I remember taking the kids to the zoo, and their shock when they saw the hippo waving its tail and pooping at the same time, and oh my God,
Yep.
they're a memory etched in my mind forever.
Yes, that's not something you always think about, but there you go.
Well, but I'm glad you mentioned about hippos in our organizations and how it's not always intentional. There are those people that, I mean, even just those people that are like, okay, I don't want to go talk to them or bring this up because I'm afraid I'm going to rile something up here. And then that kind of barrier that's there ends up infusing all sorts of things. And some people that end up being hippos when that don't mean to be. And there are probably some people that we think of as hippos that aren't, and it's just our preconceived notions or our fear of bringing something up with them. Is that come into play as well?
Yeah, I think there's more than one reason, including the ones that you said. One of the leaders that I interviewed for my book was Rebecca Hunter. She used to be the chief human resources officer for the state of Tennessee. And she said one reason is that people just don't think about it. Like they're just focused on their job. That's how they're rewarded. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what you hired them to do. So it just sometimes doesn't occur to us to go work with other people and share information to other people. And we just need to be reminded of that. And other times there's not a reason to work together. Like we have our job in our department or our team, but has anyone given that team or given us a reason that we should even work with other teams? Is there some collective ambition that's going to drive us together where we need to work with other teams and we want to work with other teams? If we haven't given them that, why would they? Why would they work with anybody else? There's no reason to. I'm just going to keep looking at what I'm doing here. So yeah, those are a couple of reasons. And one of the things I lay out in the book is that it's a complicated problem. In other words, it's not just one dimensional. It's not just about, hey, let's have a motto and work together. There's some different variables involved, and we need to think about it. And a couple of them that we already talked about here, like giving people a clear ambition to work together, eliminating those gaps between teams, strengthening teams, maybe, and dealing with some of those issues that are holding back working together, like maybe some behavior where people are afraid of how they're going to react, that sort of thing. So there's different variables that we need to look at to really create that environment where we're working together truly as one team to achieve something significant.
And does this training and information apply only to large teams?
No, anybody that's leading anything can get something out of that. So if I'm leading a whole organization, then obviously I want to make sure that all those departments are working together. Everyone on the leadership team is working together. Teams in this department are working with this other team towards achieving the collective goal and ambition of the organization. If I'm leading a department, the same things apply. I may not be able to affect as much what's happening above me, but I can certainly affect what I can control. If I'm leading a group that has 2 or 3 teams in it, if I'm leading a nonprofit that has, I'm leading a board, but there's some volunteer committees, same thing. What is bringing us together to work together? So there's so many areas. And if you think about work today and how we live, I mean, so many things are done in teams and multiple types of teams. You're probably on multiple teams yourself. Most of us are, if we think about it. And so, yeah, anybody can use these principles in the formula in the book to bring that together. So we're not thinking separately, but we're working together. And then there's a lot of power when we unleash that power of that teamwork.
So, Mark, what about remote teams? I mean, this has obviously been a year where so many people have become part of remote teams over Zoom or some other tool, and compounded upon there's, I think, a big movement to subcontractors and outsourcing and stuff like that over the last decade or so. So what are some tips or strategies that people can employ to foster better teamwork when you're talking about remote teams or even with subcontractors?
So if we talk about remote teams, here's what's been going through my head is that I think we put a little too much credence in it. Like whether it's remote or in person, the same principles apply. We just need to be we probably just need to be a little more intentional via remote, not assume that everyone has it, but this stuff just becomes that much more important. And I guess what I'm saying is sometimes we get this in our head, like, well, it's remote. We need to wait till we get back to in person or things get back to normal. And then we can, well, no, not really. This stuff still applies. It still works. It's even more important. For example, remote teams, they're naturally going to be isolated, feel isolated, work on their own priorities. So it's even more important to come up with a most important goal for your team, for the organization that everyone is clear about. You just have to pound that in and take the time to make that clear to everyone and continually communicate that to everyone, because remote, they're going to miss that easily. So it's super important to do that. So I would say it's not really that much different. It just takes that much more intentionality and communication. And that's your job as a leader, to make sure that everybody has, in my example there, what's most important for there. And there's plenty of technology to do that. It's just the intentionality of a leader. Don't sit back and wait or assume that everyone's got it, or not take the time to slow down to get that clarity and speed up. Those are the types of things you need to be thinking about with remote teams, because as you know, that's not going to go away anytime soon. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case at all. So again, remind people the book is available right now on Amazon. It's the Kindle version is 99 cents, and recommend you pick up the Hippo Solution: Eliminate Territorial Thinking and Unleash the Power of Teams by Mark Kenny. All right, so Mark, is there something, when you think about it, team building, has been a pretty popular topic for, I don't know, at least the last 20 years, and maybe a long time before then. And is it as simple as, hey, let's go have a team building event together and do some trust falls and stuff like that in order to establish teamwork, or is there a little bit more to it than that?
A little bit more to it than that, Eric.
I sense a little sarcasm.
Well, a little sarcasm, and I think there's some value in some of that. And I think, and especially sitting where we're at today, in the last, after the last year or so. I think one thing that a lot of people are tired of is, how do we engage our team? How do we do team building? How do we have fun with our team? All that stuff is important, but it's almost like now, especially, we need to do the real work of building strong teams. And that's more about really being intentional. And I'll give you some Patrick Lencioni stuff. It's hard work doing this, but it really has become important now to reinvest in our teams, developing that vulnerability-based trust and the behaviors that make up a good team, what makes up a good team player. How do we get work done together? That's hard work to do. It takes hard work to do that as a team. But those are the kinds of things that we're talking about that have much more effect on individual teams than team building or going out. That stuff is important too, because we want to have fun, but we want a team where we're getting stuff done, we're fulfilled by being on that team, and we enjoy it. And that takes hard work to be able to do that. But if you think back, my best experiences weren't just the work I accomplished, but it's who I accomplished them with. So when you have that synergy of working as a team, even though it's hard work, it is worth it. So it's much more than what you mentioned there. There's a lot to it, but there's a lot of resources out there. And when I'm working with leadership teams, for example, I'll use a lot of those resources to really dig in. So when a team has some turbulence, or maybe there's an executive whose foot's almost out the door, or a team that's lost, stuck, or bored, there's some real work to do there, but the resources and the process is there to do it. But it goes a lot beyond, or much beyond, going on a ropes course.
I appreciate something you brought up earlier about, there are those people who are say, look, I come to work, I do my job. This is my zone. I'm in it. I just do my job. I go home. Why do I need to worry about interfacing with that person over there or this person over there? I'm doing my job. Is that not good enough? And how do you react to either an employee that's like that, or an employer who also says, yeah, it's fine. I just pay them to show up, do their job, go home. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I think you have to change the question a little bit. Like, if I'm a leader or a manager or an employer, and I see that in someone, or see that in somebody in my team, where they're like, why should I work with other people? Why shouldn't I just do my job? Well, the real question is to ask yourself that, like, why should they? What reason have you given them to work with other people? Is there something where they need to work with other people? Have you incentivized them to do that? Have you worked on creating the team structure so that makes sense? In other words, why would they? I think that really is the key, or one of the keys, is to reframe that question, because it's too easy to say, well, that person just isn't a team player. I love coaching. So I coach girls basketball. I forgot to mention that earlier, high school basketball. And I coached soccer for a number of years. Well, inevitably, in the first game of every season, a girl would get the ball and just try and dribble through the entirety of the other team. And my reaction in the beginning was, pass the ball. That girl just isn't a team player. She just doesn't pass the ball. Well, no, it's because I haven't given her a reason to. I haven't put in the context and the work and the training to build the fundamentals of working together. So that's on me, not her. It has nothing to do with her. It's on me as a coach. And it's the same thing here. It's on us as a leader to build that culture of teamwork and to give that the reasons why for people to be motivated to work together.
All right. So you brought up that example, which is a phenomenal example. And I see a lot of kids who are in that role, I think, get that to that spot because they're like, okay, I'm good at dribbling. I'm accomplished at this. I mean, there's some of them, let's just go to those ones. There are others who aren't, and they're just going to try it anyway. It's fine. But they're like, okay, I'm accomplished. Maybe they think they're the best player on the team. Maybe they are the best player on the team, or at least by some measure. And they're like, I'm just going to keep going and carry the ball myself because I'm the one who's best equipped to do it. And I'm afraid if I pass the ball off to another team member, this is going to fail. And then, of course, take that same analogy right into the work environment, right? I'm the best person to accomplish this task. I'm not going to involve anyone else. I'm not going to pass the ball. They'll just screw it up. I might as well just do it myself. How do you address that? How do you give them a reason to become part of the team or to engage team?
Well, a couple things come to mind. And one thing comes to mind first is that we empower that behavior, because it's easy, using the same example as a coach, it's easy to focus on your higher skilled players. They're the ones that are going to score. They're the ones that are going to stop the goals. So it's easy to focus on them to drive your team. And just like in an organization, it's easy to focus on and we have terms for them, right? Emerging leaders and high potentials. And you rely on those people to get things done. Nothing wrong with that. We want to train emerging leaders and so forth, but I think we feed into that a little bit. Well, Josh Bersin, who's a researcher for Deloitte, talks about how we actually get more benefit by working on the team and developing a team as opposed to individuals. In other words, the focus is more on team as opposed to individual. So we need to shift some of that focus and energy towards developing individuals to developing the team. Obviously, developing individuals is important, but I just don't believe we do enough of developing the team. And I think that helps. But also, if you think about those high potentials, if there's not a good team environment, they're going to leave. It's no fun being in an environment where there's some politics, or where there's not synergy, or there's turbulence with other people or in meetings. So let's create an environment that they enjoy being with and make them part of the solution. Engage them as a high potential to help create this team environment and give them some responsibility in that. And so they shine even brighter.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I was thinking while you're talking about, I was thinking about, this plays out in sports, it plays out in business, plays out in the military. The team is far more effective than the best of individuals, and that's a great lesson as well. Those superstars on your team, are they going to want to stick around if they feel like the rest of the, if they're just working with a bunch of people who aren't as good as they are, and they've got no investment or no reason to help them succeed either.
Right. But if you can take the best from them and bring up everybody, and it's a cohesive team that's giving the best skills and gifts from everyone that work together, and then at a higher level in the organization, we're doing the same thing, not with individuals, but with teams, the best and the synergy, team with team, and working together to achieve something big, then that's where the magic really starts to happen.
So talking about your book here, and again, for everybody, it's available on Amazon. Mark, is there a favorite part of your book or a favorite lesson that is in your book that you'd like to share?
A favorite part or a favorite lesson? One of the things I enjoyed was telling some stories in the book. I used some anecdotes, some personal anecdotes and stories from my own experience. Including some flying stories. I'm a little bit of an aviation nut and used to be a pilot. But I think one of the lessons that comes to mind is, and I'm hesitating because I don't want to reveal like the opening story. That's like my opening story. But I think one of the key lessons is that there's a lot of confusion out there around where we're going. And that really is the job of a leader, is to make it very clear as to where we're going. Now, in my book, I talk about that as simplifying the destination. Other people talk about that in different ways, about creating clarity or whatever. But are we all moving to the same direction, navigating to the same place? That is probably the number one thing that activates everything. And in a particular story in my book, I wasn't navigating to the right place, and you'll have to read about that. But I think that's one thing that comes to mind is for us to work together, we've all got to be clear on where we're going.
So you mentioned aviation, and being a bit of an aviation guy myself too. I was certainly drawn to one of your chapter titles here, which was conduct a clearing turn. Can you explain what a clearing turn is and why it's important when it comes to creating teams?
Absolutely. So that's in a section in the book that talks about restoring individuals. And not to get into too much, but we all know that stress and anxiety and burnout has really been rising, and it's going to be very difficult to work as a cohesive individual team, much less a team of teams like General McChrystal talks about in his book, unless we deal with that. So in aviation, when you go out and you take off and you're doing some sort of training maneuver, such as a stall or a steep turn or whatever it may be, the very first thing that you do is you do what's called a clearing turn, where you turn 90 degrees to the right and then 90 degrees to the left, and you're looking outside the window to make sure that there aren't any other planes in the way. Like, this area is clear, and then you conduct your maneuver. So it's the same sort of concept. I use that as an antidote, is sometimes before we move into an initiative or maneuver, or even to work on our team, we need to see kind of what's in front of us, make sure that there's not something there. And, for example, we have been working so hard, we haven't stopped for 11 months, and we're just tired and burned out. Well, that's something we need to address and kind of do a clearing turn before we launch into this next initiative. So that's an example of that and how that plays out and how I reference that in the book.
Excellent. So, Mark, we're kind of coming to the end of our time here. Is there any like final point or something that you'd like to share with people before we sign off from our live cast and podcast?
Yeah, as I'm talking with folks, for example, I'm talking with some folks about keynoting and working in their organizations, and there's a common theme that's coming up these days about, maybe it's something like moving forward, or embracing the future, or whatever the new normal is, and getting back to where we were. That's kind of a common theme for conferences or teams or organizations. So my challenges and the thought in going through that is to really work on how do we do that together, not just some phrase or motto or intention, but this stuff has been around for a long time, but especially after this last year. If not now, when? Now's the time to really do the work. Let's really move forward together. Let's do the work to move forward together, so we really are a cohesive organization, a cohesive team that does this together, and not just talk about it. And I think a lot of people are open to that, and that's kind of my challenge, is for folks to really dig in and say, okay, we've done it this way for a long time. Let's really take a step forward and use this as an opportunity to truly move forward together.
Yeah, we definitely live in a time where we have license to do things differently. There's a much less tendency to say, well, we've always done it this way, so this is the way it's going to be done. And if that's one of the positive things that's come out of COVID, it's that opportunity to invent and do something a little bit differently, and to be, and to be flexible. Some of it, of course, been forced upon us.
Yeah. And I don't think that people want to go back to the way things were, and to be isolated or to be in pods or silos. I think they want to have an environment where they enjoy going to work and accomplishing something together.
Yeah, I think, and I'd love your opinion as well, but one of the lessons that I think that people have learned from this time is that, remote work isn't necessarily all it's cracked up to be. Before this, there were so many people like, oh yeah, I'd love to just work from home. I'd love to just work remotely, telecommute, all of that. Well, this last year, literally millions of people had the opportunity to telecommute for the first time. And some of those people have like, yeah, no thanks. In fact, my staff, we just spent really the first few weeks at home and then started sneaking back into the office.
Right.
We're in California, so it was locked down fairly tight. And they don't want to work from home now, but at the same time, we still have the flexibility of when we need to. Yeah, we're prepared. We're set. We're fine. We'll work from home when we need to. But they don't want to work from home, on a general basis.
Mm-hmm.
And is that something you think you've seen people bumping into as well?
I've seen both. I've seen people that don't want to work from home. I've seen people that like, man, this has been great. I want to keep doing this. I don't want to go back to the office every day and commute. So I've seen both. So I'm really curious as to how that'll play out logistically. But I think there's been a variety of different experiences and as to what people have enjoyed about it and not enjoyed about it. So it'll be very interesting as we merge those together.
Yeah. I think, I guess it also, how long your commute might have a dramatic impact on which side of the equation you fall on that one. We have a 15-minute commute, so that's different than if we had an hour and a half commute. Then I would see telework would be really, it'd be hard to go back.
Yes.
From otherwise.
I think you're right.
Terrific, Mark. Thank you for your time. Congratulations again on your book, A Big Day. And I'm excited to see how the rest of the launch goes. And if people want to reach you to talk more about the training that you do or to learn more about your book, where should we send them?
Send them to hippo-solutions.com, HIPPO solutions.com.
Excellent. I'll put that in the chat log here for everybody too, in the comments. Terrific. Well, thank you again, Mark. It has been a pleasure working with you on your book. It's been a pleasure talking with you this morning as well. I'm going to take us out here. So remember, the Hippo Solution is available right now on Amazon. Pick up the Kindle version for 99 cents. The paperback is also available. I would recommend you pick up this and give it to people that that work with teams and organizations. I think that they will thank you for it. There's no doubt that they will benefit from the information contained in the book. Mark has done a phenomenal job of taking some of the best things about the training that he does and the presentations he's done, and he has put them here in the book for you. So thank you very much for joining us today on the live cast and podcast, if you're listening to the recording. And we'll see you again on our next episode. Thank you.